Okay, what I want to talk about is fitting one of these Aeroline electric fans. Now, like most people who are working on slightly custom vehicles and so on, they tend to buy Aeroline fans or various types of electric fan because they've got a space issue. They've had to modify something and take the original fan off the engine due to there being quite a reduced gap, and I have exactly that problem here. I've got a lightweight Landrover with a Daihatsu 2.8 diesel engine in it, and the space is considerably tight. So I bought this Aeroline fan off eBay, and it comes with fitting kit and instructions. Now it tells you so and so how to fit it. It says first locate the 90-degree plastic feet and slot them in the fan and place the spring over the long tie, then gently push through the fins with rubber pad against the radiator to protect it. Then on the other side of the radiator put the other fan and secure using the round plastic clip. Pull nice and tight and cut off any excess cable tie. Okay. Now, I didn't want to pull these too tight because, well, I just don't think the cable ties are that solid, and I think if they're under a lot of tension on the springs, they could burst and you would lose your mounting on the fan, and losing the mounting on the fan is worse than not having it tight, in my opinion. So I haven't compressed these down a great deal, and the theory is I should always be able to do it later on. You can't cut something off, or you can't stick back something that you've already cut off on the tie, so it's better to be able to push it down and cut it off again later if you need to make them shorter. So I've left them like that. So basically you set it up as you can see there. You slide these little feet into a slot as it shows you in the diagram down here, and it shows the right angle foot up against the radiator, and you put a little square pad against the radiator between it, and then you mount the spring at the back and this push tie thing through the center, right, and that mounts inside here. Now it's not so easy to see it, but because I've got a few layers of mesh on these things, but you can see one there possibly. Yeah, so that pushes through. So I had to take the radiator, I had to take the front grille off my Land Rover, unbolt it from the wings, then unbolt the radiator off. First of all, you've got to make sure that there's no coolant in, so you've got to drain the coolant out, take the pipes off and so on. Then I've had to take the radiator out, put it down the ground, unbolt the radiator from the front grille, then mount the fans on best position I can, pull the tabs through and everything. So I was following the instructions. Now originally what I was tempted to do before I read the instructions was just here there's little tabs, 4 tabs on the sides with holes in them, about M6 holes. And what I did was I started to mount these the other way around. I started to mount these through those holes there with the spring, with the small end of the spring down against the tab, the back of the tab there. Then with the either with that cushion underneath or without. Originally I was going to mount it without that cushion underneath, pretty much as the fan is sitting here. See, the fan is actually now sitting up against the radiator surface, so that's without that pad there. So, you know, that, and I was going to do that, but then I read the instructions, and fortunately, you know, it said to mount it in this way. Okay, so that, I thought, oh, that was a close shave. I nearly mounted it incorrectly. Fortunately, I read the little sheet, A4 sheet, and it told me to mount it with these right-angled brackets. So I mounted it as so. I've assembled the whole thing up, put it all together, mounted it up, as you can see. Let's just put these instructions down, and you can see I had quite a close gap, which is why I was using these Aerolines. I've used 2 9-inch fans to mount in here, because I've got a small distance. Now if I had mounted it on there, or I'd thought about it a little bit more, I could have rotated the fan brackets and pointed them upwards and downwards. But having said that, I followed the instructions, and it said to mount these things in this manner. Didn't really show how to mount the springs, but I guess mounting the springs with the big end towards the base of the pad was the sensible option. So it's all mounted up as per instructions. Then what I did was I came and thought, right, I better just check that this is all good and that it's all nice and solid. So what I did was I pulled on the fan, and it slides out away from the radiator like so. So basically, if you were driving along down the road and that slid back, you've got a good chance of ripping your whole radiator to bits, because it could foul up on here, on this pulley, and basically you would have radiator pipes and water spraying everywhere. The whole engine could potentially seize up on you, because you might have all sorts of bits of metal flying into your pulleys and jamming everything solid. Yeah, so basically you would end up with a fairly knackered car quite fast. So there's your Aeroline fan fitting instructions, and just thought I'd make this little video to explain how to fit one. Now that I've followed the instructions, I'm going to have to now take it all apart again and fit it the way that I was going to fit it, and that is with the little tab through those holes there, and probably not even with those little pads, although I could put the pad between the radiator and the back of that. And I'm going to invert the springs and put the small end of the spring down against the hole there, as I was originally going to do before I read the instructions. Because if you follow the instructions, you're going to end up with a wrecked car. The problem is I've now cut all these little tabs off, but as I was thinking ahead, I thought I'm not going to cut them completely short. I'm going to still have a little bit of adjustment. If I put a pair of pliers on, I can pull them with the pliers and tighten them later on. So it's fortunate I was thinking ahead. So now I've got to take it all apart and do it again. All again. Now I'm taking it off my front grille. So I've now got it in bits here, and I've started taking these little tabs off. So basically, to get these tabs off, I find the best way is to get a little screwdriver and twist it just inside there, but I need 2 hands to slide it off, so I'm not going to actually do that while it's on camera because I didn't bring my tripod out. Yeah, so basically it should come apart, and then I'm going to remount it correctly. Okay, I've done the first 2 points there. I've moved the fan more away from the centre as well, because without those mounting brackets on it, it's a bit neater. Now, part of the problems I'm going to have now, of course, is because the nice smooth points which were originally on the ends of the ties have been cut off. When you poke the slightly blunt ones through, it's going to push parts of your cooling fins out, which it's done here. So it starts to rip holes as you push it back in. So you're damaging your radiator by the number of times that you're repositioning this fan because you followed the instructions that came on the booklet. So just letting you know, if you follow the instructions, you will damage your radiator. So I'm just putting these back on, but as I say, I need 2 hands because I haven't brought my tripod with me. So I'm going to get on with this, knocking some more holes in my fan radiator vents, and I'll see how I get on, because it's a bit of an old radiator and it's quite tender, so it doesn't really want much abuse like this. But I suppose the answer is, when I take these others out, try and put a point on them, maybe with an angle grinder or sandpaper or something, before you slide them back in again, and that way you won't damage your radiator cooling ability quite so much. Okay. Right, so it's now mounted back on, and I think that is probably a better way of mounting it than the way it's said in the booklet. As I said before, this radiator is an old radiator, and you know, it's got damage. When I first took the radiator out, I was brushing it, and as I was brushing it, I noticed that the little cooling veins were coming out with the brush, so I quickly stopped that, and I thought, right, this hand has to be handled quite tenderly. So what I did was I cleaned it down gently, and then I blew the whole thing over with some spray on stove paint, you know, barbecue type stove paint, so to basically help seal it and bond the actual veins up a little bit better, keep moisture from causing any more corrosion to the copper and so on. So I'm concerned about damaging the radiator anymore. Now I've put these on, and I've put them directly against the radiator. Now, and other options, as I've discussed previously with people, I could have mounted these on a aluminium plate, but that would have generally involved standing it off the surface to some degree, to allow a bit of airflow between the radiator and the fans. But as you've seen from the gap that I have, I can't really afford to be doing that. So they're mounted directly on the radiator, and I'm hoping that most of its use is going to be when the vehicle's moving, so the airflow of the vehicle moving will assist with its cooling in the normal manner. Whereas if I plated all the surface off of the rest of the radiator that didn't have a fan directly behind it and had virtually no gap, then that would actually make the radiator get hotter, So this is the best option that I can see, and I'm going to be using this and testing it out in this setup, and hopefully it'll work. Just got to put it all back again now, and this time I'll put the fans on. Now, problem with this sort of mounting, as I said, I don't want to pull it too tight on these ratchets, because I have a feeling the ratchet straps could fail if they've got a heavily loaded spring against them over time. So I've not made the ratchet too tight. Now, the fact that the fan is mounted directly against the radiator will hopefully give enough friction to stop it moving around so much. I don't want the fan to start sliding down, because if it slides down, then it's going to take more of these little cooling veins out, and eventually sort of rip a big hole through them as the fan drops down inside the radiator. Not something that I want to happen. Yeah, potentially something could be done with some cable ties, putting cable ties actually through the fan in some sort of way rather than these straps, and lashing it to the mesh in the front. The other thing is, because I've left these little tabs slightly longer, they do in fact slide through this protective mesh which I've got. You see, I've got 2 layers of protective mesh on this, the large 1-inch grill and this 1/4-inch fine grill inside. So the hope is that will assist it from sliding downwards if it is compelled to. This is a custom front grille that I've made. It's not a standard Landrover one. I've made it all myself out of high chrome steel with galvanized steel plate on the front. Yes, so you'll notice it is slightly different to a standard, say, Series 3 or Series 2A Landrover. This is actually a Series 2A with a lot of modifications. Rightio, I'm going to get on with this and put it all back together now. Have fun.